Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome, folks. Today the Hungry Gamer is back with another Kickstarter preview. And today we're talking about Legacy of Thracks, The Awakening. And before I get started, please make sure you turn on your Klingon subtitles, because if I make any mistakes in the rules overview, that's where you'll find the corrections. And additionally, please do note that everything you see here is still in the prototype phase and is subject to change. Now, before I get going, let's talk a little bit about what this game is. This is an adventure-style game that can be played in several different phases. You can play it in a one versus many variant, you can play it in a everyone for themselves variant, or you can play it in a solo variant. Additionally, there are several different modes that change the length of the game. But at its core, what you are doing is you will be moving your adventure around this board, gathering supplies, battling other players, in order to be the first one to be able to unlock all of the magical portals. And those magical portals are up here. And if you are the first one to do that, you're going to be the person that wins the game. If no one manages to open up all those magical portals, then you'll be looking at the amount of points that you've scored during the game instead. If you are not interested in how this game is played and just want to jump into my final thoughts, then you want to go to the timestamp on the screen right now. For those of us still here, let's talk quickly about how this game is played. And I'll also point out that I'm not going to go through all the different modes of play, but I'll just kind of give you the broad overview of what I played with myself. And so what you're going to have is each player will be their own different leader of a faction. This one here is the leader of the Engineers faction. That is this guy right here. And each player is also going to have their own different deck of different action cards that they're able to get, and each of these will do something different, and again, each faction has their own specific deck. And as you're playing through the game, each player will have a different way that they're able to slowly unlock these different abilities here. In the case of the engineering faction, every time they get a crystal, they'll be able to bring one of these down and unlock these abilities as they go. And you'll also notice over here, there are ways to become stronger in battle as you play. However, the core of what you are doing is you're going to be moving around this map here. And as you move, you're going to be looking at how much space there is in between each of these different areas. And as you are moving your hero, you'll be spending 1 gold per space that you move. So I'd spend 1 gold to move to there, but it would cost me 3 gold to move up to here. Now, there are ways that you can make that cheaper by building roads of your particular color out on the board, and that makes it cheaper for you to move, and it gives you a bonus if another player winds up going and using your particular road that you have built. Additionally, you're going to be able to enter into battle, and these spaces here, you'll be able to claim those for yourself in battle, and depending on what it is that you're claiming, you will unlock different things. You may, by conquering a village, you might unlock these village advantage cards that will be yours until someone else conquers the village from you. And in addition to that, by winning fights, you'll be gaining glory points, and glory points will allow you to unlock those magical berries that we talked about earlier. Additionally, you'll be going through and in different places, you'll be collecting different quests, and then again, by accomplishing the quest, you'll get different bonuses, sometimes also allowing you to unlock those very important magical portals, and you get the idea. Now, in addition, you'll see that there's all these little guys out here as well. These are called lost souls. And those are kind of workers that anybody can use. And on your player board, you'll see you have a space to track a whole bunch of different stuff. You have gold, you have silver, and silver is just like gold, except it cannot be used to move your hero around. You have mana, and mana for the most part is going to be used to move those lost souls around. I'll talk about that in a minute. You have hit points. I'll talk about when you use those, because you use them more than just in battle. And then you have your glory down here, which I already mentioned. And so as you're using your mana to move these lost souls around, there are some locations that only the lost soul can go to and accomplish. For example, down here, there's this green crystal. So if I wanted that, I could send a lost soul there and then take this crystal into my cap. And then if you remember, as the engineering faction leader, I would actually get an extra bonus for doing that. You'll also notice that there are these relics around the board, and you're going to be able to use these relics by turning 5 of those into, you guessed it, unlock one of those magical portals. And you'll see there's all these different types of locations you can go to. They all do different things. In some cases, when you go there, for example, right here, you can only send your hero there. You send your hero there, and to conquer it, it's going to cost you 2 hit points to do that. And hit points are more like a resource in this game, because you can't actually die in this game. But if you're down to 1 hit point, you can't spend any more, so that means you wouldn't be able to conquer this location until you go somewhere else and heal yourself up, be that a healing fountain or back to your capital, etc., etc. And the last thing I'm going to point out very quickly is all the way at the top of the screen. In fact, you can barely see it there. There's a little portal there. And you can go through these portals to go up there. And once you go there, you have taken your hero into the zone of the magical portals. And then all the portals that you haven't unlocked, there will be a certain amount of gold and hit points that you have to spend to unlock them. And so the interesting thing here is you will never have enough gold or hit points to unlock all of these. So you'll have to have unlocked many of them via relics and quests and glory. And then finally you'll want to go up there and then you'll spend all the coins and hit points you have left in order to be the first one to finish unlocking those magical portals. And that's just about it. I'm going to talk about combat in just a second, but on your turn, you're able to do as much as you can. Spend all of your resources. You're spending your gold to move around, you're spending your gold to conquer villages, or perhaps to tunnel under a conquered territory. You're using your mana to send these lost souls all around, and you're collecting and collecting and collecting. Eventually, you'll wind up in combat, whether it is you're sieging someone's castle, or you're just fighting directly against them. And as I briefly showed you on the engineering player board, there's ways that you can boost your abilities depending on what you control across the board. But in general, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be spending battle cards. And so these battle cards that you play will add to your basic strength that we already talked about. And depending on your class, you may get bonuses for that. So for example, my engineer, if I played this one, would actually have a 3 instead of a 2. And then at the bottom, there are these blessings. So what it means is sometimes you're actually going to want to spend these battle cards even if you're going to lose, and you know you're going to lose because maybe these blessings down here are exactly what you might need to win. Then when you win, you're going to get to take things from the person that you beat and so on and so on. But really, that's the core of the game. You're going to be going around and around until either you get to the end of the set number of days, depending on how long of a game you're playing, or someone breaks through all of those magical portals. When you're doing the 1 versus many or the solo, you will also add this very long board along the side, and what that's going to do is it's going to give the player playing the shadow or the 1 versus the many some extra things that they're doing over here, as well as some other things that they are tracking, which are ways for them to basically mess with you by getting the shadow power. That's going to allow them to play cards out of their own unique deck of cards to pretty much just mess with all of you, because clearly they don't want you to break into the portal because they're going to get a lot more points if you don't do that. But really, that is the core of how this game works. So what do I like about this game? The first thing that I like is it is grand in scale. And what I mean by that is not it takes up space on the table, though it certainly does take up space on the table. I mean, it is epic. And I have right here, this is the storybook. And this is a lot. Like, there's a lot going on in this game. It is an epic feeling adventure game. And so I like that. I also like that for an adventure game, it's got a bit of Euro feel to it. And by that I mean you're collecting resources, and for the most part, you're just using your resources. Even your health is a resource that you're using to accomplish things. So it has a bit of the resource management bit that you get in a Euro-style game. And I do like that. But along with it, I like that combat is done so quickly and easily, and you are constantly conquering things back and forth from each other. So the bonuses that you have are just constantly cycling through. And what that does is it keeps anyone from just kind of running away with the game, because you can always go behind them and take something back from them. And that I like as well, because that kind of keeps the game relatively balanced as you're playing and keeps it from becoming just one player just becoming this dominant force just smashing through everybody. I mean, maybe they can, but then they're going to lose the game, because you can't do that and still win for the most part, because you can only unlock 3 of those portals through glory points, which is what you gain through combat. I also like the different ways that the 3 different main characters play, and then the 4th one if you count the shadow player when you're doing kind of the 1 versus many. And I think they are different enough that they are interesting, but they're not so different that you're spending a ton of time trying to figure out what the heck is going on. So I like that as well. And then the last thing I'll say that I particularly enjoy is I like the speed of the solo campaign. You can play a solo game really, really fast. And along with that, if you're playing with 2 or 3 other people, you're playing the quote-unquote rush game, that also does play very quickly, assuming just kind of moving through and doing what you're doing. And I know I said that's the last thing I just want to say that I like. That's not true. This is the last thing that I particularly enjoy about the game is I like the way that on your turn, you can do as much or as little as you want. You can save some of those resources to have a big turn later or to plan ahead a little bit, or you can just blow through all of your money and all of your mana each round and just try to do what you can. And I like having that choice because it does make for some turns feeling like they're really exciting and fun. And oh my gosh, you're such an amazing hero because you're crossing all the way across this land and you're controlling these lost souls and making them do stuff all over the place and gathering things. You're accomplishing quests and you're going to end up, you're going to fight and you're going to siege the other player's capital. You're going to take their stuff. And sometimes you do that and it just feels very epic and grand. What are my quibbles with the game? And the first one is, in addition to being grand in scale, it's grand in reality. It takes up a ton of space. The board is huge, and it gets even bigger when you add on the shadow player board. In fact, on my gaming table I have, which is, for 4 players, if I put the board out and the shadow board on there, that's pretty much the whole table. There's barely enough space around the edges to get the smaller player boards in there. So it's really, really big. Along with that, as I mentioned earlier, and one of the things I kind of enjoyed about it, is it does not feel like a traditional adventure game. You're not rolling any dice. You're not doing lots of combat. You're doing a lot more resource collecting. And it feels more puzzly than it does adventure in many ways. And that might not be what you're looking for, especially as you look at something with all of this story and you think, oh, dungeon crawl, adventure game. Rolling dice, killing stuff, fighting. That's not really what you're doing, so just something to keep in mind. The next thing that I'll say is some of the in-game conditions feels a little bit lackluster to me. And by that I mean, if you don't get to, someone has gotten into the other land, broken through all the portals, you go to a point scoring, and point scoring is just not particularly exciting. How many rows did you build? What do you control? It's that kind of stuff, and this becomes kind of a point generation thing. And it's probably great and fine for many people, but for me, it's just not that exciting. So that can feel like a little bit of a letdown. And then the next thing is, though I played a bit of this solo, and it does play quickly, and I enjoyed my time, this is not a game that shines solo or with just 2 players, because you can kind of go to different sides of the board and just kind of stay away from each other, and meh, you don't have that interaction that really makes the game shine when you're just bumping into each other by necessity. When you're playing a solo game or a 2-player game, you're only going to bump into each other when you choose to go do it. And to me, that's a little bit less interesting than when you're just compressed on the board. You have to bump into each other. You have to have those conflicts when you need to. And then the final thing is, to me, the most interesting mode is when you have all the players out there. But that means you're doing a co-opetition style game. And it's not fully co-opetition because there is no automatic lose, but it's the same idea. The shadow player is probably only going to win if they keep everyone out of the other realm. And so that means that altogether, all the players are going to have to kind of keep the shadow player in check while they're all trying to get into the other realm. And so if they get into the other realm, then they're going to wind up winning most likely. And a lot of people don't like that style of game. Now, if you like co-opetition, if you like 1 versus many, and the many are doing their own little co-opetition on their own, then you'll probably enjoy this. But if you're the type of person that does not like co-opetition, then you're not going to enjoy that aspect of the game. But there you have it, folks. That is Legacy of Thracks, The Awakening. As always, if I made any mistakes in the rules overview, please let me know in the comments with the timestamp so I can get that into the Klingon subtitles. If you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, and share. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.